Motor City opened in theaters on July 24th, 2026, from IFC Films, a 1970s Detroit revenge picture containing 5 lines of dialogue across 103 minutes. It is a gorgeous slab of pulp that proves a feature film can run on motion and pictures alone, right up until it needs a woman to have an interior life. I'm the real-life Fake Wizard, and this is a Fake Wizard's review of Motor City. If this video brings you any value, hit the subscribe button, as we're posting lots of reviews every single week. Detroit, 1977. John Miller works on an auto plant line, recently coming home from the Vietnam War with 2 friends who would walk into a burning building for him, and they kind of do. After recovering his stolen car containing a ring he means to propose to his girlfriend with, he returns home, and upon proposing, a smoke canister bursts through the window and the police invade the house. The criminals who stole his car earlier stuffed the trunk with copious amounts of cocaine, framed John, and phoned it into the police to have him arrested. He goes to jail, and we discover that John and his fiancee Sophia were caught in a love triangle of sorts with Sophia's ex-boyfriend, a cocaine kingpin who has the Detroit police on payroll. From there, a revenge plot ensues, one that we get virtually 0 dialogue on. This movie requires that you put your phone down. There is 5 lines of dialogue, which means the only way for you to get the experience of the movie is to fully pay attention. If you see this in theaters, there is no running to the bathroom. You will miss way too much. Now, the lack of dialogue is clearly a choice, and it's one that I happen to like very, very much. This movie takes you back to why movies were once called motion pictures. I also felt reminded of the film from 2015 called Hardcore Henry, an action film set entirely from our protagonist's first-person perspective, like a FPS video game. With Motor City, the lack of dialogue is part of the spectacle. People speak through the film, you just don't know what they're saying, which also means that the actors need to be able to entirely convey their emotions, their actions, and the story without the reliance on dialogue as padding. Facial reactions really matter. Movement timing matters. How they interact with the world matters because it's all we're focusing on. You can see the minor blemishes in the performances because they're inescapable here. And that, I think, is really special. You know, in a world where now we're comparing things to Christopher Nolan's Odyssey and calling that this big epic, right? Regardless of whether you liked that film or not, Nolan was trying to make an epic, right? It was an epic for Hollywood. Motor City is actually a work of art. It tried something new. It's not perfect, but it's fun, it's unique, and for that, it very much deserves credit. And that brings me to the needle drops. Hollywood has trained audiences to flinch when a classic song track drops over a fight because half the time the song does marketing while the scene sits there looking proud of itself. Motor City stacks a lot of period rock and disco tracks against rumbling 70s synth, and it works. Because again, with no dialogue, the music is allowed to be part of the movie, and not in the way that James Gunn's needle drops are. You know, like The Middle from Supergirl, which was absolute cringe. For those of you who saw it, I know no one saw Supergirl, but we did, and we reviewed it here. The Act 3 final fight is immensely satisfying, and whereas most of the movie does have the needle drop tracks you'll recognize, Act 3 is all of these really cool synth tracks that really elevate how awesome the combat is. I've seen a lot of movies, but there is an elevator fight and a runaway car fight in this film that I don't think I've seen before. And holy crap, they're a lot of fun. But unfortunately, we call balls and strikes around here. Is Motor City art? Yes. Is it unique? Yes. Does it have flaws? Oh, you betcha it does. It saddens me to report, but John, our Alan Ritchson-played protagonist, runs a revenge plot that doubles as a mega simp narrative. The drug kingpin frames John. The drug kingpin also simps for the same woman that John does, which puts them both at odds. John's military buddies load up for a guns-blazing raid, putting their own lives in danger, and, well, actually, if we take a second here, everyone involved, like everyone in the film, puts their lives in danger constantly over Shailene Woodley. They just do. The conflict of how John comes to date and then propose to Woodley's character Sophia is that he intervenes in a situation where Sophia is being abused by the drug kingpin in an alleyway, and John rescues her from that encounter. This whole thing is some Reddit, milady, tips fedora, white knight writing here, okay? And in this current climate of dating culture, especially in the West, it is extra apparent that this tone, the tone, it's just tone-deaf writing. This is very tone-deaf writing. All of which is compounded by, at the top of Act 2, while John is in prison, the abusive ex-boyfriend visits Sophia at work. She's a waitress. At first, we think that he might be here to do her harm. He's a bad guy. He's abusive. But no. He's here to get her back. And through that scene and then a series of montages, not only does she actively and willingly get back together with this abuser, they get married all while John is in prison. So now, spoilers I guess, but this is too important to not point out, right? Our protagonist, who is sitting in prison pining over a woman who abandoned him, believing all the charges, right? Got back with the abusive ex, married the abusive ex, and lived a life of rich gold-digging luxury while married to said ex. It is very difficult to empathize with John's position to then still fight for her later on because this girl belongs to the streets. Now, that is not to say white knighting for this girl is his only motivation. That would not be true. The kingpin did frame him and get him in prison for what I believe is years. Like, there are many years in between here. But John still has contact with his military buddies. They help him out along the way. They're also very resourceful and very intelligent. And so I find it unbelievable that neither of his war buddies said, "Hey, John, this girl is not worth it. We should be doing this for revenge on the kingpin dude who ruined your life, but we should just leave the girl in the penthouse, okay? You are Alan Richson. You won't have a problem finding a nicer, more loyal girl." See what I mean? His boys don't come through. Motor City is the kind of action film that rolls around once every few years. It is not perfect, but it is just below great. It's a good time. The spectacle of no dialogue action films set in the 1970s kind of haze with synth backing ambience for all the best action scenes is very fun. And right there, this should be a dynamite movie that I highly recommend. However, the story leaves a little bit to be desired, but it's not nearly as bad as all the stuffy critics are saying it is. This movie is a solid 7 and a good time if you've got nothing to do on a weekend. Friends, if this brought you any value, smash that subscribe button as we're posting new reviews nearly every day. Until next time, create, innovate, inspire others to do so as well, and cancel your Disney Plus subscription. Goodbye.